Hello, it's so good to have you back on my channel, and if you are new here, thank you for stopping by. So in this video, I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful dress with an exaggerated hip. So if this is what you're interested in, you might want to stay to the end of this video, as the picture on the left corner of the screen is inspiration, and my own recreation at the middle and the right corner of the screen. So if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do well to subscribe to my channel, and please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. So let's get right into today's tutorial. So I'm making use of this damask fabric. Here I have 2.5 yards, depending on your size. 2.5 to 3 yards should be enough. And I'll also make use of my lining. So let's draft the front pattern first. Here I have folded my fabric into 2, and this is the starting line. So starting from the shoulder line, I marked 39 inches for the length of my gown. The actual length is 37 inches, but I added 2 inches for allowance. So from that point, from the shoulder point, I came down by 10 inches. That's the bust point. I came down by 16.5 inches again. That's my waistline. And then I came down by 24.5 inches. That is my hip line. So I'm just going to go ahead and extend all the lines like so. So another way to determine your hip line, just mark from the waistline, mark 8 inches downward, then you can get your hip line, because everybody's waistline and hip line differs. So on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and on that point I came down by 1 inch. So after that 1 inch point, I'm marking 8 inches downward. That is my armhole depth. So I'm just going to connect it in a straight line and vertically and horizontally like I did. So for the neck width, I went in by 3 inches, and for the neck depth, I came down by 3 inches as well. And I'm just going to use my French curve to draw my front neckline. And after that, I'm just going to go ahead and connect my shoulder slope like so. So on the chest line like so, I'm going to mark my bust measurement divided by 4, and then I added 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So I measured everything I have on the armhole depth, and I marked the midpoint. On that midpoint, I went in by 0.5 inch. So after that, I'm just going to use my French curve to draw my armhole curve like you see me doing. So we have marked the bust measurement already. So on the waist, I marked my waist measurement divided by 4, and then I added 1.5 for sewing allowance, and extra 1 inch for the dart. So for the dart measurement, I marked my nipple to nipple divided by 2 on the waistline, which is 4 inches for me, and on the bust line I came down by 2 inches, and on that point I marked the nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. From the waistline I went down by 5 inches, and I also marked the 4 inches on that point as well. So I'm just going to connect everything on a straight line. So on the waistline, I'm going to go in and out of the straight line by 0.5 inch, and then I'm going to connect in a slant manner downwards and upwards like so. So this is our dart intake. This is how we are going to sew our darts. So by the time we put the lining and everything, this is how you are going to mark your dart intake measurement on your lining, and that's how we are going to sew it on both sides. So on the hip line, I marked my hip measurement divided by 4, and then I'm going to add the 1.5 inch sewing allowance, and then I'm adding extra 2.5 inches for the exaggeration on the hip. You know, this is an exaggerated hip gown. So the total measurement we have on the hip line, I'm going to also mark it on the hem as well. Everything, my hip measurement divided by 4 plus the allowance and the extra 2.5 inches. So now I'm going to connect the hem to the hip in a straight line like so. And then now I'm connecting the bust to the waist like so as well. And then after that, I'm going to use my French curve to connect the waist to the hip, just like I'm doing. You can also use your free hand, but it's advisable you use your French curve to have a perfect curve. Okay, this is me still using my free hands to blend everything so it can be perfect. So that's basically all for drafting of the front pattern. So now let's cut out the front pattern. So for the back pattern, I've pinned my front pattern on my folded fabric. As you can see, I added 1.5 inch for zipper allowance. So I've gone ahead to cut it out. But I didn't cut the neckline yet. As you can see, the zipper allowance. So I didn't cut the neckline for the back. It's going to be different from the front. So As you can see, it is straight. And on the back armhole, I added about 0.25 inch. So for the neckline, I'm coming down by 1.5 inch, and then I'm just going to use my French curve to connect it to the shoulder like so. So that is our back neckline. So I'm extending the waistline. Another waist, I went in by 0.75 inch, and then I'm going to use my ruler to connect it upwards in a slant manner like so, and then downwards as well in a slant manner. It's just like using freehand. So this is what I normally do to eliminate zip bulge. So I'm going to cut out those parts now, and then I'll split the remaining parts into two because that is the back pattern, and I'm gonna have to cut out the neck. So for the sleeves, I've folded my fabric into two. This is going to be a puff sleeve. The length of my sleeve, I want it to be 6 inches. Then I'm going to add 2 inches for the puff effect and extra 2 inches for allowance. So that is a total of 10 inches. So I'm just going to extend the M line like so. So to know what you're going to fold, I marked my armhole depth. This is my armhole depth like this, and then the remaining 2.5 inch for the pleat, for the allowance for the pleat, and the puff. That's a total of 10.5 inches. So on this M line, I'm marking my arm circumference divided by 2, and then I added 1 inch for allowance. So on the shoulder line, I went in by 4 inches, and then I'm just going to use my free hand to draw the curve like this. Just pay attention and just do it exactly how I'm doing. I'm just using free hands to draft this puff sleeve. So I'm just going to connect it to the measurement we have on the hem like so. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out now. So I've also gone ahead to cut out the second sleeve. So these are the both sleeves, and for my front and back pieces, I've gone ahead to cut out the lining as well, as you can see. So for the hem of our gown, we want it to be seamless. We don't want any stitch to show on the hem. So I made the lining about 1.5 inch shorter for both the front and the back piece of the gown. And can you see it? The lining is 1.5 inch shorter. So I'm going to show you how to go about it. So before we proceed, let's cut open the front. So I came down by 4.5 inch from at the front pattern, and then I'm going to cut it open. Remember, our dress has a little bit of opening at the front, so depending on how deep you want it to be, but I'm making use of 4.5 inches because I don't want mine to be so deep. So this is what our front pattern looks like after cutting open the front. So if you want yours to be very deep, just like the inspiration, you can come down to about 6-7 inches. So let's pick the front pattern. So remember, the lining is 1.5 inch shorter, but don't worry, just bring it down. Let it be equal, like you see me doing. Let your lining match at the hem like this, and then we are going to stitch on it with about 1/2 inch. Make sure it is right side facing right side. So this is what it's looking like after stitching the hem. So after that, you just drag it back upwards, like make it equal at the upper part again. Can you see? So it's going to form a fold at the hem. Can you see? So just do it exactly how I'm doing it. So after making it equal, we'll stitch the neck area like I'm demonstrating, the neck area into the opening to the other side. So this is what our front pattern is looking like. As you can see, I'm going to need to notch all the necessary places, and this is what the hem is looking like. Can you see? So now the next thing we want to do is to make sure it is equal. Judging or using the armhole, you can use your pin to pin down the armhole area so that it's going to be equal. So you can choose to start stitching from the hem all the way. You stitch the side from the hem all the way to the armhole area, and you also do the same thing for the other side. Make sure it is equal on the armhole. Can you see? And then you can choose to stitch from the hem upwards, and can also choose to stitch from the armhole area downwards. I think this way it's easier instead of using your pin to be holding it. You can please use your pin if your hand is not so stable. So I think this is easier. Stitch from the armhole down to the hem. So I'm going to do that now. So this is what it is looking like. Can you see it? So the next thing is to turn it to the right side through the armhole opening. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, it is neat. All our sewing are inside, and most importantly, the seam at the hem is not showing outside. So the next thing is to sew our darts. So let me just recap. I came down by 12 inches, and on that point I came down to my waistline, and then I also came down from the waistline by 5 inches. So I'm marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2 on all those points, and then I'm connecting with my straight line. I've showed you this when we're drafting, so this is just like a recap in case you don't know how to mark it on the actual fabric. So I went in and out by half an inch on the waistline, and then I connected in a slant manner upwards and downwards like this. So if you remember, we've done this before. I'm just trying to show you again. So can you see how I'm holding it? So this is how we're going to stitch, like this. The two edges are going to be sharp, and that's how it's going to be. We're also going to do the same thing on this other side, because the dart is on both sides. So after sewing the darts, this is me pressing it, so it will be easy. Can you see? I'm pressing the whole thing. So this is our front pattern. Can you see the darts? Can you see how I stitched it neatly? So we're done with the front part. Let's move to the back. So everything we did for the front, we're also going to repeat it for the back as well. So placing the lining on the right side, to make sure the hem is equal, and then you stitch the hem with about half an inch. Can you see? And then after that, you drag it up and make it equal at the top. Then you stitch the neck area with about half an inch as well. You stitch the zipper allowance area, and then you stitch the side as well. And then after that, you stitch the dart intake, exactly what we did for the front, just that the dart intake for the back, you be mindful of your zipper allowance. So this is what our back pattern is looking like after stitching the darts. Don't forget to minus your zipper allowance when you're stitching the darts. So this is it. The next thing we want to do now is to place the front and back pattern together, right side facing right side like so. And then we're going to open up the shoulder area like this. We want the stitching to be inside, to be inseam. So can you see how I'm folding it? Just pay close attention. I folded it like this, and then I'm going to stitch with about half an inch. So I'm going to stitch it. I'm going to do the same thing for this other side. You open it up like this, and then you fold it together, and then I'm going to stitch. So this is what the shoulder is looking like after stitching. Just watch it closely and you're going to get it. The next thing I want to do now is to stitch the sides with my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So I'm going to stitch it from the armhole all the way to the hem for both sides. So I'll head over to the machine now and do that. So this is what our gown is looking like after stitching both sides, as you can see. So the next thing we want to do is to close the back. So we're going to place it together like this, right side facing right side, and then I'm going to use my zipper. I'm going to place my zipper like this, and then I'm marking with my chalk. I came up by about 1 inch on the zipper, so I'm marking that on my fabric, on my dress, and then using my pin to hold the upper part so it can be equal. From that point where I marked, I'm going to stitch with my zipper allowance all the way to the hem with my 1.5 zipper allowance. After that, I'm going to put the zipper. So this is what our gown is looking like after stitching the zipper, as you can see. So now let's work on the sleeve. So let's pick one of the sleeves, and then we're going to fold the hem. Remember, we added allowance. I'm going to fold it by 1 inch. So I'm going to fold it like this, and I'll fold it again like this, and I'm going to stitch on it. So I'll head over to the machine now and run a straight stitch. And I'm also going to join the sides together like so with my 1 inch sewing allowance. So I'm going to do that for the second sleeve as well. So this is what our sleeves is looking like. I have stitched the hem and the sides, as you can see. So the next thing is to attach it to our dress. So this time around, we're going to be attaching starting from the armhole, because the shoulder area is going to have a pleat. It's going to have pleats. So we're placing the armhole together like this. From the armhole, I'm going to sew with my 1 inch allowance. I'm going to sew, and I'm going to stop somewhere around 2 inches to the shoulder. So after that, I'm going to pleat it like I'm doing. So I'm going to stop there, and then I'll go back to the armhole again and stitch the other side all around again like we did for the first side. So when you're close to the shoulder, you stop again and you pleat the rest, making sure the notched part, which is the middle part, is directly on the middle part of the shoulder as well. So this is what our dress looks like after stitching the sleeve. As you can see, the puff effect is showing. Can you see the way the pleat is at the shoulder, which formed the puff? Can you see the way I joined it around? So that's basically all for stitching of our sleeves. So after all this stitching and stitching, the last thing we want to do is to go ahead and give it a good press. This outfit needs a good press. So that's basically all for making of this beautiful dress. Thank you so much for watching to the end, guys. See you all in my next one. Bye.